Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Walt Bauer, and I am the Pre-Service Training Coordinator at the Human Development Institute at the University of Kentucky. Welcome to the Human Development Institute's first spring seminar in the HDI seminar series. My brief visual description is I'm a white male wearing glasses with hazel eyes and a blue collared shirt with a blue and white tie. My virtual background is a 3-story brick building that has offices for the Human Development Institute on the University of Kentucky campus. We use Zoom for our virtual platform. Our speakers will provide an opportunity for questions today, and we welcome questions from all of our participants. Please type your questions for our speakers in the Q&A box for a robust question and answer session. If you hover over the bottom of your Zoom screen, there is the Q&A option. Please use the chat box for technical questions. We have real-time captioning for the webinar in the closed captioning feature. Turn on the captioning by clicking on the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen and then clicking Show Subtitles. Show Subtitle. Should you have questions about CEUs, you can contact me. My email address is walt.bauer@uky.edu. Again, my email address is walt.bauer@uky.edu. Please take a moment to complete our brief evaluation. You will receive an email that provides a link to access the session evaluation after the webinar, after the seminar. Is really helpful as we plan for upcoming webinars. The title of today's webinar is Inclusive Higher Education. Our speakers are Johnny Collette, UK, the University of Kentucky's Human Development Institute's Deputy Director with the Supported Higher Education Project. We also have Aaron Fitzgerald, University of Kentucky Human Development Institute Comprehensive Transition and Post-Secondary Coordinator with the Supported Higher Education Project. We also have students today joining us from the College and Career Studies program at UK. I'm now going to turn it over to Johnny Collette to get us started. Johnny?
Thank you, Walt. Excited to be here today. We've been looking forward to this seminar, and we're happy to be asked to share about the inclusive higher education that's happening across Kentucky, and particular spotlight today on what's happening here at the University of Kentucky's College and Career Studies program. Just to give you a quick overview of what's going to happen today, and we're really going to break it up into 2 hours. And this first hour, we're going to do a quick overview of the inclusive higher education programs in Kentucky, talk about the Supported Higher Education Partnership, which is a project here at the Human Development Institute. And then we're going to have a panel presentation and discussion from the perspectives of students and alumni and mentors and also parents. So that's really going to be the big deal today. So I really hope you're looking forward to that. We certainly are. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we're going to share some information. I'm Johnny Collette, as Walt said, and then Aaron Fitzgerald, you'll meet in just a moment, our coordinator for our comprehensive transition and post-secondary program here at the University of Kentucky. And then we're also, as Walt said, going to have a Q&A at the end. Next slide, please. All right, so let me jump in. I'm happy to have just a few minutes to give a broad overview of the Supported Higher Education Project here at the Human Development Institute. It's one of our many projects in our employment priority area here at the Human Development Institute, and I'll just say HDI after this, if that's okay. But we're really proud of this work, and this work is largely supported by state budget funding, so we're very grateful to the Kentucky General Assembly since 2020 has been including this project in University of Kentucky's budget. And we're thrilled about that. And I think you'll hear all the reasons why we're thrilled about that. But again, just very grateful to the Kentucky General Assembly for including this project in the budget as part of UK's budget. Our Supported Higher Education Technical Assistance Center, that's what we do here. We really provide technical assistance to the programs that you're going to hear about today that are all across our state now. And we give customized assistance, direct support to institutions of higher ed that already have a program like this, or institutions of higher ed who are thinking about starting a program like this. And so we're really excited to sort of be in that position to think how we can really lead Kentucky and how we can, as the University of Kentucky, again, be the university for Kentucky and think about how we best support work that's happening all across our state. Next slide, please. These projects, this project that we're talking about today, everything we talk about will sort of be under this big umbrella of this project. And we will, sometimes we may refer to inclusive post-secondary education programs, or IPSEs, I-P-S-E, inclusive post-secondary education programs. And then even within that, we'll talk more specifically about comprehensive transition and post-secondary programs, which is what we have here at the University of Kentucky. But as part of our role as a statewide technical assistance provider, we do the things you can see on the screen there. We really work to help current programs enhance their programs. How can we get better? We help institutions of higher ed who are interested in establishing programs think about the steps it takes to do that, to apply with the United States Department of Education. We can help all the way from application through the whole process with the U.S. Department of Ed. And really, again, just focusing on students, which is the reason we're doing all of this. Student-centered planning drives all that we do, and that includes mentoring, that includes providing individual support to students, and it includes, working in coordination with other entities, other organizations across campus, but also across Kentucky who may be serving students in different ways. So, and then research and evaluation is always a part of what we do, of course, here at the University of Kentucky and at HDI. Next slide, please. When we talk about students with intellectual disabilities, what do we know about their engagement in higher education? And really just as a background to give sort of some foundation to our conversation today, when we look at the percentage of students with disabilities across disability categories who are enrolled in a college or a university in the year after they exit high school, we're looking at only 20% of students. So 20% of Kentucky students who exited high school 1 year ago are enrolled in a college or university. That's across disability categories. When we narrow that to just talking about students with intellectual disabilities, that's cut in half. And now it's only 10% of students with intellectual disabilities are enrolled in a college or university in the year after they exit high school. So this has been a need, a pervasive need. This is not only true in Kentucky, it's been true across the nation. And there's great work going on across the nation and 300 plus programs, and many of them like ours. But this continues to be an issue, an opportunity, and a challenge for us to face together. Next slide. All right, a lot of text on this slide. So you'll have this information at some point and can dig in a bit deeper. But one example of an inclusive post-secondary education program is the Comprehensive Transition and Post-Secondary Programs, or CTPs. And I'm just going to say CTP from here on out. These are very important. These were carved out in the Higher Education Opportunity Act all the way back in 2008. So now, almost 20 years ago that, these were posited in that act, and work started happening from federal grant funding to a number of other things, and to think about how we start these programs and really focus on increasing the representation of students with intellectual disabilities on the campuses of our colleges and universities. So we're grateful for the Higher Ed Act, including that in 2008. And these are programs specifically for students with intellectual disabilities. These are programs that go through a fairly rigorous approval process with the United States Department of Education. And once approved, they can then offer financial aid to students who are enrolled in these programs. And so that's a really important part of this effort. All students think about how we going to pay for college. And we're glad that the Higher Ed Act in 2008 not only carved these out, but also created an opportunity where students enrolled in these programs, in these approved programs, could be eligible for federal financial aid. Next slide. And this is
Johnny,
all toward preparation. I'm sorry, did somebody have
oh,
something?
yeah, Johnny, there has been a request in the chat to if we can increase the size of the screen. So I was going to suggest increasing the size of the screen. I could share the PowerPoint as well. Aaron, what do you think?
Walt and Johnny, are you both seeing Aaron's kind of name card
Yes,
still
yes, we
showing
are.
up? Yeah, that's certainly causing that slide to be smaller for participants.
That's what I think as well. I mean, one option is I can share the presentation.
Okay, I apologize. The way that I'm seeing it, it is full screen, so I don't know why it's not showing up that way for you all.
Okay. Aaron, if you would like to stop screen sharing and I can go ahead and share the screen. I think that might make it bigger. See what we can do. I have the PowerPoint open on my screen. I'm clicking share and going to slideshow. Can we see the entire?
That certainly
Yes.
looks bigger to me.
Does it look bigger?
It does.
Okay. I think we are on this. Is this a slide we were on, Johnny?
That works, Walt. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we've looked at some numbers. Who are students with intellectual disabilities? Well, these are students whose intellectual disability is documented. That's a really important part of eligibility for these programs. There has to be a documented intellectual disability. There are lots of ways to document that. As we think about students with intellectual disabilities, we're thinking about those students who have in the law, a cognitive impairment that's characterized by significant limitations in one, intellectual and cognitive functioning, and two, adaptive behavior. So that's an and not an or. So it has to be, both of these things have to be true. This could also be a student who, and is a student often, who is currently or was formerly eligible for a free and appropriate public education, or FAPE, in Kentucky Public Schools under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Next slide, please. So students enrolled in these approved programs, as I mentioned, are eligible for federal and state financial assistance. Now, this is true whether the student left high school with a standard high school diploma, or like in Kentucky, an alternative high school diploma, or may have left without a diploma at all and are not pursuing a typical degree. Most of these programs, and it's certainly true of us, these are non-degree seeking programs, or non-degree programs. These are non-degree seeking students, but still eligible for federal and state financial assistance because they are enrolled in an approved CTP. That means they're eligible for the Pell Grant. They're eligible for work study. Of course, if financial need is demonstrated, as would be true for any student. But in Kentucky, because we've done incredible work in these programs and on behalf of these programs since really 2013, so a long time ago, students also get their Kentucky Educational Excellence Scholarship, or their KEYS funding. And that's on top of any other funding KEYS funding that they may have generated while in high school. And so if students are enrolled in 6 or more hours in an academic term, then that's $500 in KEYS money. If it's less than 6 hours, it's $250 in KEYS money. So we're proud of that in Kentucky. Grateful that students have access to federal financial aid, but in Kentucky, we've gone a couple of steps beyond that, and we're again very proud of that, and again thankful to the Kentucky General Assembly for their leadership, all the way back to 2013, and again in 2016, where these amounts were effectively doubled at that time. Next slide, please. One more real benefit in Kentucky. I'm sorry, let me stay on KEYS for a minute. So there aren't any other eligibility requirements to get your KEYS money. That's one of the things we've encountered a number of times over the years is, because it's a little different, maybe there are extra steps that people need to take. There are no extra steps that people need to take. The only eligibility requirement is that the student is enrolled in a CTP and they get their KEYS money. If they meet these requirements that are in the law that we've talked about, received an alternative high school diploma or attended a Kentucky public high school, is a student with an intellectual disability, and then ultimately they enroll in an approved CTP. Beyond that, the college financial aid people will know exactly what to do. They deal with KEYS and the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority all the time, but that's all that students need to do. And I think that's important for students and families to know. Next slide, please. And I think we're coming toward an end here of my part. Also in Kentucky, the Kentucky General Assembly in 2022, so just a few years ago, also expanded the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship Program to now include students with intellectual disabilities who are enrolled in approved CTP programs in Kentucky. This is significant. We are continuing to work with the legislature and other partners to remove as many financial barriers as possible so that students who have historically not been on our colleges and campuses pursuing meaningful credentials and experiences can now be, and don't have to leave with a massive amount of debt. So we're very proud of that and very thrilled about that leadership in Kentucky. So next slide, please. We do have 6 approved CTPs in Kentucky. 3 years, but in 2020, we had 3. We've doubled the number of approved CTPs since the legislature started including this funding in the University of Kentucky state budget. So we work with other colleges and universities to help them get started. And that's part of a big part of how these funds are used, because we feel like that is our charge, to work with current programs to help them enhance those programs, or work with interested colleges and universities to establish new programs. We are thrilled to have one at the flagship, the University of Kentucky. Also, Murray State University, a very long-standing CTP in Kentucky. Northern Kentucky University, the longest. Murray and Northern are right there together in terms of the longest CTPs that have been, consistently and continually operating since 2010 or so. Bluegrass Technical and Community College also, and then 2 of our newest, the Owensboro Community and Technical College. So now 2 of the 16 community and technical colleges across the Commonwealth have CTPs, and then our partners as well at Western Kentucky University. So we are thrilled that across these programs, there are around 50 students enrolled in these programs today. And you think about, maybe that doesn't sound like a big number. That's a big number when before the number was 0. And it was 0 all the time. So we're thrilled about this and thrilled about our opportunity to lead at HDI and at UK in supporting more and more students to be involved in these programs. And these 6 CTPs and others make up what we call the Kentucky Supported Higher Education Partnership. And that's on the next slide. And this is when I'm going to transition to Aaron to talk more about that. But next slide, please.
Johnny, we did have a question in the chat from Rebecca.
I'm happy to do that if that's part of how, if we're taking questions now, that's great with me.
It's a quick one. Why no CTPs in Louisville?
Yeah, the University of Louisville has not completed a CTP application for the U.S. Department of Education to consider. They certainly have expressed interest over the years. We worked with them a little bit a year or so ago on this, and University of Louisville will have to speak for themselves on whether they will be interested in pursuing this again, but I think perhaps they will. I think the timing just wasn't right for them at that time, but they certainly have expressed interest, and we're happy to work with U of L anytime to kind of do what we've done with other schools.
Thank you, Johnny.
Next slide. Yeah, Kentucky Supported Higher Education Partnership. This is all about options, all about access and success for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities across the Commonwealth. So together we envision a higher education system, not just UK, not just 5 others, but a higher education system that is increasingly more welcoming of students with intellectual and developmental disabilities and can pursue success in academics, employment, and community engagement, and then ultimately in competitive integrated employment. And so thanks for a few minutes. I'll be around the rest of the day. I'll be back, I think, on the second hour, and happy to respond to any questions then or even before then. But let me turn it over to Erin, our CTP coordinator here at UK. And I'm excited for y'all to get to know her and to get to know our incredible panelists today, our students.
So hello, thank you. Sorry about the tech issues. I just want to do a very quick overview of the program we have at the University of Kentucky, which is called the College and Career Studies program. This will be very quick because I just want it to be a snapshot of an example, and then I want us to be able to get to the panelists talking about their college experiences. So next slide, please. This is just an overview of what our program structure is in the CTP program at UK. That's going to be different for every program. So this does not speak to all CTP programs or all other types of inclusive education programs. But for our program, the general structure is that students take at least 24 hours of coursework for credit or audit over their time in the program. At least 3 supervised practicum, volunteer, or work experiences, paid or unpaid, related to career goals. A student portfolio of accomplishments and resources. Some of these things are just being worked on over time. CCS is College and Career Studies, so I'll use that a lot. CCS personnel support instructors in implementing course accommodations and or modifications as needed. So we try to work with instructors and the Disability Resource Center to support the students and also anyone else that is involved in those supports. And then peer mentor support and partnership is really important. And I think the last slide, these are just some photos on campus, just to give a little snapshot of some of the things that go on. Thank you. And then career exploration. We talk a lot about career exploration. I talk a lot about community engagement. Career exploration, what does that mean? It's not a direct, we're going to place someone in a job. That's not really what anyone does in college, right? But what do? We explore careers as part of a college experience. That means thinking about what you might like to do, trying out different things to see what you do like and what you maybe don't like. That's important information too. Learning about different career options, talking to people about what they do, gathering resources, and then keep a binder of resources to use later. What we hope too is that students will take this information that they're learning and compile what is important for them to keep up with later so that they can use that amount of information or the information that is specific to them as they continue after their time in college. Next slide, please. This is just one example of what someone did for their community exploration. Callie says, one semester I worked on a podcast with another student, Sarah. We were leaders in this project, and the podcast we started is still going strong. And then Kate added in, my experience at UK has allowed me to learn and teach dance as well as prepare me for a job working with children. And this is a snapshot from one of her practicum experiences with a mentor doing some activities with kids at a child care center. And Kate also says, I have learned more about myself and being a leader to others as well. I am proud to be a Wildcat. So that's just a little overview. And this is another snapshot of Anne in front of a wall at UK that shows Anne on the screen as part of UK's Community of Belonging initiative. And I think that belonging is important at UK, and we want it to be something that is important at all institutions of higher education. I'd like to get on to the panel conversation, which is going to include Anne, and it will also include some mentors and a parent. And these are just questions for people to talk about their college experience and what that was like for them what that offered for them. These answers are each going to be the panelists' own individual answers about their experiences. And this is to show similarities and differences. And then in the second hour, we'll hear a few questions at the end of the seminar that some of those panelists might want to ask you all who are attending. And if each panelist, when I say your name, could say hello on video, that will help me to pin you for this part of the meeting. The first panelist is Ann Schweitzer. Ann, can you say hello?
Yeah. Yeah. I am Roger. I am an alumni. Yeah, I am alumni and peer mentor for the program.
Thank you, Ann.
I am now in my new place. I am from also Kentucky.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann. We'll get a little bit more into our introductions. I want to make sure everyone is pinned. Kathy, do you mind to say hello so I can pin you as well? Spotlight you as well?
Hello, everybody. I'm Kathy, Ann's mom. That's my claim to fame at this point.
Okay, I'm trying to see you. Is someone else able to spotlight Kathy? Are you on video? Okay, thank you. Kylie?
Hello, I'm Kylie.
Kylie Witt is a peer mentor with our program this semester and has been great, and actually is a returning peer mentor from another semester. Emily Sunderland?
Hi, I'm Emily.
Emily is also a peer mentor with our program this semester. New mentor with our program this semester from the College of Social Work. And then the other folks who have added to some of the responses in the panel who were not able to be here because of semester and family and work obligations are having perspective added from video and slides. And Dr. Bauer, if you would like to unshare and reshare, I don't know if that will change the slides, but I do know that we'll need to have the audio and video optimized for the panel section.
I will certainly be able to do that. No problem at all. I've just stopped sharing and I will share again. I do have the, let's see. You ready for the first question, Aaron?
Sounds great. Thank you. And I may go off of, well, no, I'll be on here. You can go ahead.
Okay, the first question for our panelists is, why was it important to you to continue learning after you finished high school?
Yeah, this is Emily, and it was important for me to continue learning after I finished high school because the career I wanted to follow required college studies and required a degree, and I thought this was the most successful way possible.
Hi, I'm Kylie, and I think that I wanted to continue learning after I finished high school is because my career wanted me to, or needed me to go and further my education.
Hi, I'm Kathy. Both of my parents were first generation college students and just told us that was the next step in life. I wanted to do that also, but I wanted to be able to find a career to make a better life for my family and myself.
Thank you. We will move to Ann's slide.
I'm Ann. it is important to come. It is important to continue learning your whole life.
I always thought I would go to college because I wanted to see myself as a college student. I always thought I would go to college because I wanted to see myself as a college student.
And sorry, since we had a change of who's sharing the slides, you have to click onto the slide with the video and click it twice to go to the next one. Off of the
I
video,
always thought I
off of the
would go
video
to college.
image. Onto the blue. Thank you.
This question for our panelists is, what were some of the ways you wanted to learn new things after high school?
So I come from a very small town in Ohio, so going to a college farther away, it was kind of like to get out of that bubble that I lived in and learn like cultural aspects that I may not have seen in that where I grew up. So that was really important for me in my career.
I also agree with Emily. I wanted to expand my knowledge of certain cultures, and I feel like coming to UK has definitely done that. And I wanted to learn more to help me in my future career.
I obviously wanted to continue my education through college, but just like Kylie and Emily, I knew I wanted to meet more people, a greater variety of people, and learn about new places.
I wanted to go to college, travel to new places, and in Arkansas.
What are some of the reasons you wanted to go to college? And what did you hope to learn about?
I've always loved going to school and learning new things. I didn't know that college could be an option for me because of my learning differences. I also wanted to be part of a college community. One thing I found out is that I do really well with literature classes, and that is something I wanted to learn more about.
What are some of the reasons you wanted to go to college?
This question is, did anyone talk with you about options for attending college while you were in high school? If so, who talked to you about it?
So I had a lot of guidance counselors, teachers, and just like general people part of my high school that talked about options of college. Where I come from, community college is a very big avenue for some people. So I didn't hear so much about like the big colleges and like going to a big college, but it definitely was talked about.
For me, I feel like it wasn't in the school setting talked about a lot about college and different options we had. It was mainly you're going to start work immediately as soon as you get out of high school. So my parents were my gateway to learning about college in different ways to like and different colleges to go to.
I graduated from high school a long time ago. So even in the old days, we did have a counselor who talked to us about careers and different things like that. But my biggest influences were my older siblings. I have 4 older siblings who were in different colleges and talked to me about their experiences.
My guys counselor at my high school and my parents.
This question is, did people encourage you to think about college? And or did people discourage you from thinking about college?
Yeah, so I'm a first generation student, which means that neither of my parents went to college. So I think it was like from them specifically, it was a push from them. Just they were successful in their careers, but also they wanted me to be successful a different route and have that college experience. Because they did struggle at first and then built their careers. But a lot of encouragement from like counselors and high school teachers, but there was also other options given of like trade schools or starting your career right out of high school.
Yeah, so I had a little bit of encouragement and discouragement. My parents and my family really encouraged me to go to college, and they wanted me to pursue that path and be successful in that. But there was also the discouragement of financial aid, and that I did not know if I was even going to be able to go to college because of financials, because of where, and I feel like a majority of where I come from is it's more of a poverty area, and everybody was more so on the line of no, you can't go to college because of that. So I've had both encouragement and discouragement.
I was fortunate to always have encouragement, especially from my parents. It was just the next step in life, and it's what was expected of all of us. So, and of course, financial was always the question, but we just had to work it out.
Uh, and most people saw college were not for me, but I knew I wanted to be like my family and go to college, and I wanted this in my entire life.
I didn't think much about it because nobody ever talked to me about college. I didn't get a traditional diploma, so maybe that is why they didn't talk to me about going to college. I have an alternate diploma because my testing was different. I was able to do a portfolio to show what I learned instead of the usual state testing. We were not sure if the alternate diploma would be accepted by colleges.
This question is, what did you think college would be like?
So you always hear the expression college is the best 4 years of your life. And I really feel like, well, yes, I've had a great time in my 3 years so far. It's definitely come down to like I've faced obstacles that I didn't know that I would face if I hadn't attended college. But I think it's that very stereotypical, these are the best 4 years of your life, and that's the mindset I went into college with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Emily. I feel like everybody sort of talks, there's a stigma around college and that it's going to be the best years and that they're going to be really rememberable and stuff. And I feel like everybody always talks about the positives of college and how you're going to do great and how it's going to lead you into a certain career field and things like that.
I totally, like most 18-year-olds, I was going to go to class and study, but I was really excited to meet new people and go to ball games.
I thought I would go to classes and study hard. But I also meet new people and go to ball games.
This response here is from Jacob, who said, as a high school student, when I thought about going to college, I imagined it would be like high school. I thought the classes would be closer together. I thought my teachers would already know me by name. I thought each day as I walked down the halls, I would get to high five my friends and say, "Go Cats," or "Did you see the score of that game?"
This question is, what was college like once you started? How different was it from what you had thought it would be like?
So going back to that mindset of thinking that like college is going to be the best 4 years of your life, definitely not it is fun, but like definitely not the case your first month of college. I came in not knowing a single person here, and I went random roommate, so like I really didn't know anybody. And college is hard. classes are hard. You know, I went through high school, didn't have to study ever. Straight A's, graduated with the 4.0. So I was very, very humbled when my first chemistry exam came back. I didn't really study for it too much because I was like, well, this is just going to be like high school. And I even took college courses in high school. It's just not the same when you're um, in a college setting when you're also having to take care of yourself and you have to live with the consequences of the choices you make.
Yeah, so I thought college was going to be pretty easy and just fly by. And because in high school as well, I was a pretty good student and I always made all A's on everything. And I didn't really have to study or do anything to, sort of anything sort of hard to go through. And then whenever I got to college, I had to figure out how to study, the different methods to study because I never did. And I had to actually take notes and things like that. And it was a very different experience from what high school was, but it has been very fun and I've enjoyed it.
I think the social aspects were exactly as expected. Got to meet a lot of people, go to ball games. Really, all that was very positive for me. But my first week of college, I read more than my entire high school career. So the academic was quite a shock and took a while to figure out how to budget my time and my classes. And then I also had to get a job. So I had to learn all those things.
I was so happy to be in podcast like the rest of my family. The the classes were harder than I thought. It's always been my dream going to AK to be like my family. They were so proud of me going to college. Well, I guess they did.
And Jacob's response to this, while I did have some friends I know from high school, I had to adjust to being a new kid and having to introduce myself to everyone around me, including my teachers. I still said "Go Cats" to people I saw, even though they didn't know to high five me yet. My classes are no longer close together. Instead of walking between classes, I now take a bus. These were big adjustments, but I feel like I adjusted well.
This question is, what types of support did you have while in college? How did you find your way around and learn what you needed to do?
So I've always had my family and my parents to support me emotionally and everything through college. Um, and this is a very freshman thing, I think, but I did use maps like the first week of classes to find everything. I feel like that's a very also, like I said, freshman experience and asking people for help. Like I didn't know how to ask for help, and I'm a very independent person, so I had to learn how to ask. It's like okay to ask people for help, and if you are struggling, that it is okay to ask. So yeah, just my family as an emotional support and like I know they'll always be there. And I also had to learn how to make friends. Because in high school again, you have the same classes with the same people every day. So it's your high school friends. So really in college you have to learn how to make friends and how to get through that and use them as your support too.
So, the sports I had emotional support from my parents, all the time, and I still do, but I had to more so rely on myself for support. And it was a huge adjustment trying to figure out how to be my own support system and things like that. And I, as well as Emily, used maps and Google a lot. And that was my main thing as to finding my way around and learning what I needed to do. And that was my main way of doing that.
I was very fortunate when I came to UK. I brought my best friend with me basically as my roommate. So the two of us were kind of lost together. We would go out before our semester started and find all our classes and figure out our routes for the next day. I also had two older sisters at UK who, if I had any questions about where to go and what to do, anything I needed, I had them also.
Uh, I had Aaron who helped me to meet my teachers get comfortable getting to classroom. I had uh, I had conversations from my classes too, and help with podcasts and assignments.
And another addition from Jacob here. My first semester, I learned many different things about how to navigate college life. One adjustment I had to make was learning how to interact with faculty and staff. In high school, if I had a question or needed help, I would talk to my teachers during class. But in college, the process is different. If I need help, I go to my professor's office during office hours, or I email them or text them. And we've discussed that a lot in the program, how each instructor or staff support or whoever it is that is helping will have their own communication preferences and boundaries. And so that's a different learning curve than if everyone's always gotten the information in the same way in the past.
This question for our panelists is, what is one challenge or barrier you have or had in college, and how have you worked through that?
So a challenge that I've had is from just like my personal experience and what's going on in my personal life. I had a lot going on with my family, and I had to learn how to separate my academics between what was going on in my personal life. And my freshman year is when it kind of all hit. So as I'm learning how to be independent and on my own as a freshman, I'm also learning how to separate these two very important things in my life. And I did struggle academically at like my freshman year, just with all of that going on. And I really had to learn how to be able to separate the two and then not let it affect my academics, and how to keep, even though like I was struggling, how to not let my grades struggle and not let all my other academics struggle.
I feel like a big challenge slash barrier for me was getting adjusted in general to college, because I come from a very small town and everybody knows each other, and it's basically a small community. And whenever I came to college here, I didn't know anybody, and I had to sort of get adjusted to that social barrier. And it was a hard thing to work through, but I worked through it by trying to figure out how to. I made friends with people in my classes and things like that, and went to certain events and made other friends and connections through those, and it helped me go through that challenge and barrier.
I think my biggest challenge was always organizational skills. And so once you start to figure out what that burden is at the college level, you try to get on top of it. My sophomore, junior, and senior year, I was a resident advisor in the dorms. That was how I worked my way through college. But helping others also deal with that as they came in as freshmen, also fine-tune my skills. So it wasn't just me having to figure it out, but helping others figure it out also.
I had a hard time focusing on my test. I learned to study harder for them, and it helped to have someone read to me the test one question at a time.
The homework caused me stress. Now I am used to it, but it is still the most stressful part of college.
As a student in the college and career studies program, I have not faced any barrier. I have had all the accommodations and resources I need. The biggest challenge has been learning to keep a schedule for completing assignments, but I think many students find that a challenge.
This question is, what are some things you have learned or experienced because of being in a college setting?
So I've definitely learned how to be more independent and more reliant on myself. I like when you're growing up and all through high school, you have your parents setting a schedule for you. You have your school setting a schedule for you. But in college, you really have to set that schedule for yourself and learn how to be responsible about what you take care of. So I think that was very crucial within the college setting, and is going to be crucial within a future career.
I agree with Emily. I feel like a big thing is learning how to be independent. And I feel like that's one huge thing that I learned how to be, and still learning to be. And I feel like another huge thing that I learned is time management. I feel like I learned how to better manage my time for academic work or social life or work in general and things like that.
I also came from a small town, and so coming to Lexington to UK just opened up a world that was a lot more diverse and challenging. And I learned to that I could be successful in the classroom and in a larger setting. And I've carried that with me my whole life.
Take a good note and listening closely to the teachers. I got to participate in Day Flu, how it was managed for a periodic cancer. I also got to learn more about the community through my podcast work.
Spend time on campus because I can do whatever I want on campus, no matter where around on campus. I also really like the practicum experiences. I did the community spotlight podcast with Sarah. I like working together with another student, and I already love podcasts. I also like the one making playlists with Ayan and planning events. I think it is important for people to be able to get out more and just be on campus and to do things on their own.
Besides taking classes about subjects I love, like art, music, and literature, I was able to complete practicum experiences that focused on areas I am interested in, like animal care. I learned more about organizations that help animals, like the shelters, and I also made contact with organizations that work with service animals. I learned that I am able to be successful in the college setting and also in my community. I just have to be a self advocate so that I have equal access. Being a self advocate is something we focused on as college and career studies students.
This question is, we talk a lot about Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, at the Human Development Institute. UDL is about designing instruction and learning environments that work well for all types of learners. How can we better design college instruction in the campus setting to help all students learn and be successful?
Some experiences that I've had within just like learning how others learn. I've noticed like when instructors record their lectures or post their slides like of notes, I found that very useful within my setting, to be able to go back and like listen. And people learn all different ways, and so I think it's crucial for instructors to provide different ways for people to learn, like posting the notes and like recording their lectures to go back. And, if you don't get those notes written, at least you have them. It's not like you're cut off, essentially.
I completely agree with Emily. I think that recording lectures should be mandatory for all professors to do because I feel like this can help anybody in how they're learning. And I also feel like there should be some sort of survey at the beginning of all classes and make sure to see how everybody learns and certain things they might need or certain accommodations and things like that.
I'm going to answer this from the parents' perspective for Anne's experience, and Emily and Kylie just were spot on with their responses. what was wonderful to see coming back to UK after many, many years were the instructors were so open to any sort, to whatever Anne needed. And Aaron and HDI made sure they communicated with those instructors and assisted. And every class was different, every instructor was different, but they showed such flexibility in one-on-one assistance, which was amazing to see.
How to focus like college career studies helps students with different needs. I see.
This question is, some people think college is only for people with certain learning styles or skills. Other people think college should be an option for anyone who wants to go, as long as they are working hard and learning new things. What do you think? Who should have access to a college education?
Yeah, I think everybody should have access to a college education. I mean, if you're going to college, you're committing to working hard and learning new things. So I think it's important that if you want to go to college, that it is accessible to you. Like there's different financial needs that everybody needs and different ways that people learn. But the big thing is being an advocate for yourself or having somebody be able to advocate for you. And I think that's very what's going to make you successful in college.
Yeah, I think that anybody who wants to go to college should be able to have that right to a college education. And I think that if they're willing to put in the commitment to working hard and learning new things, then I don't see why they shouldn't be able to have an access to that.
I agree. Everyone should have the opportunity. And if they can do the work and with supports, be successful at it, then they deserve to be there. As a parent who had a child where a majority of people just said she is not college bound, she was college bound. So
Anyone who work hard and to have a chance to go to college if they want to.
This question is, what are some ways that you connected more with your community while you were a college student?
I volunteer with different groups, and I feel like that's very opened my eyes to the community here in Lexington specifically. I've also volunteered back home, which has opened my eyes to that community. Also within like within my major, that there's just so many communities that you can be involved in that you don't realize you're involved in until like, you're asked this type of question. And I think the more you connect with the community and on campus and like the more successful you're going to be as a college student.
I have done a lot of volunteer work to to connect with a lot more different communities, such as in Lexington and with UK. And I feel like in my social work cohort that we have also built a community, and I connect with them by staying in touch through GroupMe or messages and things like that.
I think my community while I was at UK, since I did work in residence halls, between that and classes, I really don't feel like I was out in the community a lot. But we did organize our students and our residences with sports, social, and even volunteer work. So we organized it and reached out as a group. So
I got to spend time in Mississippi community, like the open organized at Kimmel Table and Pivot. I help Thompson and Nicole visit the town and learn about the local music sing. I also did a workshop and a presentation about music for out loud people.
What are some ways you connected with your community when you were a college student?
I had so many great community experiences. I really loved joining the extracurricular activities on campus and meeting other students. I also attended events in my community that I might not have an interest in before, like going to the library for books and best friends, where children read the service dogs. I think I made connections through my practicum work that I would not have had the opportunity to make outside of the college and career studies program.
What are some ways you connected with your community when you were a college?
What are some of the ways you're staying connected with your community now that you have finished your time as a college student?
So I haven't finished my time as a college student, but I plan to keep reaching out to those people that are in the social work major that are in my cohort because their experiences within their careers is going to help me further my career. Also, staying connected with my friends that I've made at college is very important. You know, they've meant a lot to me in this time that I've been here, and I hope that they're going to continue to mean a lot to me outside of college.
I plan to stay connected with the communities that I've made by making sure I reach out and stay connected with everyone that I've met through the communities, such as the CCS program as well, and the volunteer work I have done. I try to stay in touch with everyone as much as possible. And my social work major friends that I have also connected with, I want to stay connected with them in the future as well.
I am 30 years out from graduating from the University of Kentucky, and similar to what Kylie and Emily are talking about, I have stayed close, both personally and professionally, with many of the folks in my UK community while I was a student there. I'm a graduate of Business and Economics College, alumni, and have utilized many of their educational courses.
I continue to explore opportunities to my UK and local communities. I still help with media projects like Community Spotlight podcast. I also started the AS Music Spotlight series to spotlight Kentucky musicians.
You have completed the college and career studies program now, so you're no longer a college student. Hopefully, you're still using some of the knowledge and experiences you had as you move forward in life. What are some of the ways you're staying connected with your community now?
I currently volunteer at the Scott County Humane Society and participate in providing care for their boarded cats. I also helped with a major fundraising event that was a lot of fun. I might like to get more education in an area I love, like animal care.
How important is it to you to keep connections with the people you met while you were in college? What are some ways you might stay connected with college friends or with the program or school that you attended?
So like I kind of previously mentioned, just to keep reaching out, keep that connection with them because you don't know what people are going to be able to provide for you later in life. Like I have a lot of people's numbers that I've gotten over the years just with the different projects or classes that I've been involved in. So just to keep connected with them, keep updates on their life and keep them updated with mine.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the main thing, I think it's very important to keep the connections you make in general. And I'm going to stay in contact with them mainly by number because I like to have those just in case I might need to connect or something or make a different connection. And I plan to stay in touch with them through the phone mainly.
We keep track of everybody through email and phone. We make an effort. I mean, we make an effort to gather together once a year, which is important because then you sit back and really get to talk and exchange professional advice also. So,
I like to contact and I like to contact with my high school friends and my college friends. I now work as a paid mentor and a media specialist for the program. I would like to help AK and HDI to continue growing the CES program.
You met many people while in college. Sometimes it is hard after you finish your time in college because you're no longer seeing the people you met and the friends you made while you were there. How important is it to you to keep connections with the people you met while you were in college?
It is very important to me that I keep connected to the people I met in college. I felt like I belonged to a group while I was at UK, and I miss that feeling and seeing everyone.
What are some ways you might stay connected with college friends or with the program or school that you attended?
I would like to be able to meet with my college friends on a regular basis, and I would also like to meet new college and career studies students. It would be great if we could socialize and enjoy activities together.
You met
Thank you so much to everyone who chimed in for this part of the presentation for this panel. I really appreciate hearing from you all. I know that we had a few tech glitches and things that have put us a little bit over. Dr. Bauer, how would you like to proceed?
Let's take a 10-minute break and then let's continue this exciting conversation in 10 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back to everyone. We will continue with the second hour of the seminar. We will go ahead and start by sharing the PowerPoint. I have the PowerPoint open on my computer, and I have just shared the PowerPoint, and seeing it's going to continue from where we picked off. We started off where we left off. In this second hour, we have Johnny Collette, Deputy Director of the Human Development Institute, and Aaron Fitzgerald, CTP Coordinator, answering questions from our moderators. Panelists will also ask some questions to our attendees to continue the exciting discussion, and then time permitting, as time allows at the end, we will have some question and answer at the end. Let's go to the next slide. We've completed that second hour. This first question we will move past, since the panelists have done an excellent job answering this first question. We'll continue with the second question. This question is: there is a growing movement to include students with intellectual disabilities in higher education. However, there is still an unmet need in some areas, and finding the right program can be a challenge. Are there college search tools for students and their families to locate and learn about inclusive higher education programs that best fit their interests in Kentucky and across the country?
Well, this is Johnny Collette. I'll start there, and Aaron and I will probably just go back and forth on some of these. But yes, the answer is a quick yes. There is a college search engine on the thinkcollege.net website. I think I've included that in the chat. If I didn't, let me know. Okay, I haven't yet. Looks like I have now. Okay. So yeah, it's great. There are more than 350 inclusive post-secondary education programs listed on this website, Think College. Think College is the National Technical Assistance Center. And they also do research and evaluation. They're as involved and as knowledgeable about inclusive post-secondary education programs as there is anyone across the country. They're funded by the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Post-Secondary Education. So this is what they do as a national TA center. And again, about 350 or so programs. Not as many of those, not all of those are programs like ours that can offer financial aid, but a large majority of them are. But that's a great place to start. And again, actually, we're happy for you to start with us too. We have a fair amount of knowledge about things that are going on in the country. Erin has some boards she's on and other groups that she's on, and she knows a lot about that. And certainly we can connect you across the state.
That's an excellent thing to bring up, the Think College website, where there are a lot of there's a lot of information about different programs in different states. One thing I want to mention is, because there are different types of programs that maybe are designed for certain populations, that there is sometimes some confusion where someone might come looking for information about a program that is for a specific population, and then have some frustration because they might come across that, oh, well, this particular program at this school might be specifically for autistic students who are degree seeking and who are wanting a certain kind of support. And then maybe at another school, there might be a program that is specifically for students with intellectual disability who are not degree seeking and need a different type of support. So part of the answer to this question, yes, there are a lot of places to find information, but I think one of the issues that becomes a barrier for people finding the information for a program that might be a good match for what they're looking for is that it is a lot of information to sort through. So you may find some lists of names, you may find some programs, and then sort of sorting that out. I think of it as similar to, you know, you can give someone a phone book and say, all the information you could need is in this book, and that might be true. But then finding which actual page and which actual number that is actually going to be relevant for your situation or the call you want to make is usually going to require navigating or talking to some other people who know that information more closely. So I just wanted to mention that. And that's one of the reasons why we also wanted to talk about this in this meeting, because there are probably a lot of people that are on the call who also are in roles where you talk with students about different options. So we want to find ways to help connect people who are having those direct conversations with students and families with the right resources and information to help them sort through that. And I hope we can make that happen in this conversation.
Thank you, Erin. In this discussion, we've got two of my colleagues are also going to moderate this discussion. Dr. Rachel Womack, the Training and Lend Director at HDI, and Bree Allslip, who is a research HDI, one of our research assistants at HDI, and is a PhD student in the School of Psychology in the College of Education. This next question, this question number 3, will be asked by Bree.
Thank you, Dr. Bauer. This next question is: transition planning to enrollment in college for students with intellectual disabilities can begin long before students graduate from high school. What tips do you have for students and their families to prepare for an inclusive higher education program?
Again, I'm happy to start. This is Johnny. Well, I certainly would encourage students and families to, ask about, talk about, and advocate for this interest and opportunity as early as it makes sense to you. And so I think as early as possible, but I'll add as early as it makes sense to you. There may be times where you as a parent, as a student, may know more about options available for students with intellectual disabilities in higher ed than some of your school staff may actually know. And that's not negative or positive, it's just a reality. And sometimes that's just because it is. So there are assumptions made a lot of times, and there are norms or things that become normal for people to do or not to do, or assume about certain students. And you're going to be the best advocate for yourself, and often you're going to be the one with the most information. And so it's also an opportunity to educate your school and folks you work with on opportunities, because they may make an assumption that there really aren't any opportunities like we're talking about today. But there are 6, and we hope more in Kentucky coming in the future. So ask about, talk about, advocate for as early as it makes sense.
I agree with that. I want to add that, much like Johnny was just saying, and kind of like the phone book reference before, it's imperative to ask questions to the people who may be able to help you get more specific answers. So having questions, I know that people who are thinking about what they might do after high school, and maybe their family members, may have questions but not be really sure about some of the options that are out there. So asking the question, even if the person you're asking doesn't have the answer right away, is a good way to start the conversation. I think even if you were to find out about a program or a partnership such as KSHEP, if there were a certain program that you were interested in learning more about, reaching out to someone in that program to try to find more basic information about eligibility and who the program is designed to support would be a really important first step to make sure that you understand that part. And it can be confusing sometimes, the eligibility parts, but if you're asking the questions, I feel like that's a really good place to start, because as those options become more clear, or it may turn out that one type of program is not going to be the right fit, but okay, let's move on to looking at another one. I think including people in the school systems in those conversations, even if they're not yet aware of the differences in the programs, is just a good way to get people in communication. And that's really the best way to increase understanding and knowledge about different options, is just to make sure people are aware that they're there and can start talking about it and sifting through that information to find what might be most relevant to any particular student.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron and Johnny. Question number 4, Dr. Womack.
I hope everybody can hear me okay. I'm in the classroom at the Mineral Industries building on campus. So at least one of you all touched on this question a little bit, but I'm curious whether you may have anything else to add. So as we know, the cost of going to college has risen significantly over the past couple of decades. Are students in inclusive higher education programs eligible for federal and financial aid, even if they do not have a high school diploma? And in addition, what are some other avenues for how to pay for college beyond financial aid and student loans?
Yeah, thanks. This is Johnny. The question itself is a little tricky. So the question is, are students in inclusive higher education programs eligible for federal financial aid? That's going to depend significantly. I mean, students who are enrolled in approved comprehensive transition and post-secondary programs are, yes. But that's going to largely depend on what those other programs may be, because remember, just because something is an inclusive post-secondary education program does not mean that it is a comprehensive transition and post-secondary program that is approved by the U.S. Department of Ed. And that one of the major reasons that it's set up that way to be approved is so that colleges and universities who are approved can then establish and add this program under Title IV, and can therefore provide financial aid. So it's going to depend. If it's a CTP, the answer is an easy yes. If it's not a CTP, the answer is not an easy yes, and you're going to have to dig a little bit further. If it is a CTP also in Kentucky, I mentioned earlier the KEYS money is available to students, as is also the opportunity to apply for the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. And some programs may have additional scholarships available, additional support available, and that would be specific to institutions.
Thank you, Johnny. This next question, students with intellectual disabilities are entering post-secondary education in increasing numbers. Once students are enrolled in post-secondary education, students and faculty may need supports to be successful. What are some supports, both for students and faculty, that can help ensure that all students are able to meaningfully participate in the college environment?
And this is Erin. I might start out answering this if that's okay. As someone who is often in a role of reaching out to instructors, faculty, other university staff, anyone that might come into contact with students in the program, what I have found, and again, this is a recurring theme, I feel like in recent conversations, but just keeping the lines of communication open. It's one of those things. I wish there were a really clean response for how to best support students or best support staff, best support instructors, make sure that the information coming from us is clear, making sure that we are getting the information clearly. But I think a lot of it just comes down to being in conversation and having that open communication and collaboration. One really important thing, and I know a few people mentioned this in the first hour during the panel, there are a lot of supports already built into the college environment usually. There are some legal protections that are in the college systems that are built in, and there are a lot of programs, supports, and things that are available to students. Some of those may require that a student requests something very specifically, like accommodations, and students need to know that process in order to ask that. So I have sometimes heard students get frustrated because they don't have a support that they need, and then it turns out that's available to them, but maybe they didn't know the process or didn't know who to ask or how to ask. So trying to help connect people with the supports that are already there, the resources that are already available to any student, is a huge first step in that and main step in that. And then in addition to what's already available, for some instructors, they may have questions if they hear, oh, there's going to be a student who's taking your class for audit, and this is a student in this program. And maybe this student is going to have a little bit of a different support, or maybe we're going to ask about modifying content as an audit class. These are sometimes new situations to instructors. So again, the support being that in our case, and every program may do this differently, is that we try to take the information from the program and the way that we are supporting students and communicate that as effectively as we can to instructors, ask them what they need and what would be the best way to stay in communication, and kind of start there. And then if there are modifications needed, which is outside of an instructor's realm, then we would take on some of those tasks. If there are other tasks that are just go along with being an instructor for the course, then that would go on as usual. So we really just try to talk with everyone involved at the beginning of every semester and say, how would it be best that we all communicate about this? Similarly with the students, looking at the information at the beginning of each semester and saying, which of these classes, now that you see the information on the syllabus, now that you have a sense of what this class is going to entail, is this a class you think that you want to try to take for traditional credit? And meaning that you would have a lot of work to do to keep up with that, depending on the class? Or would you rather look at this and take this class as an audited class so that you can modify it to be a little closer to what would be the most helpful for you? So it really does depend semester to semester, student to student, instructor to instructor.
Johnny, I'll add one quick thing, and I appreciate Erin. She does a great job at this in modeling clear communications and consistent communications with faculty and instructors. But just keeping in mind for all of us that it will be the overwhelming rule and the rare exception that faculty will have been trained in any way to work with students with intellectual disabilities in their pre-training, or that they will have ever had students with intellectual disabilities in their class. So it will be the overwhelming rule, the rare exception that they will have had those things. So we always ask the right first question is always, what does the student need? But if we stop there, we're not getting anywhere. The next question ought to be, if that's what the student needs, then what does everyone in the system supporting that student, including the faculty, need? And so again, Erin does a fantastic job with that, and that's just something that is really important to all of us.
And thank you, Erin and Johnny, for that helpful information. This next question, Bree, would you like to ask this question, please?
Absolutely. Question 6 is peer mentors can play an important role in supporting students with intellectual disability on the college campus. How have you seen peer mentors support students to successfully engage with the campus culture?
I can definitely speak to that. We had a couple of the mentors on the call that were part of the panel in the first hour. We're lucky to have several mentors this semester who are doing practicum classes in different programs. What I have seen is that, I mean, one of the main things is just having people around you who support you and show that they see that you belong on a college campus. That is one big part of it. I think historically, college campuses have not been as inclusive of people with different disabilities. So just like in the rest of K through 12 schools, historically, that used to be the case, I think we see a difference over time once people are just spending time together as peers, as students, and going about the business of being college students. Most of what I see with peer support is a lot of that. It's students just working together on assignments. It's students having lunch together. It's students talking about their interests and listening to other people talk about their interests. I've seen the connections with peer mentors and students in the program grow into friendships. I have seen connections where maybe a couple of people are really into the same things, and that can help both of those students make changes in what they're going to do next. I've seen that happen on a lot of different levels. And, you know, just like with any peer connections, when you're working with someone else in some way, you're sharing space and you're collaborating and you're kind of on the same journey in some ways, it really changes the connection. I think it changes the experience for everyone. And so I've seen that happen each semester when mentors and students in the program are connecting.
I think we can move on, Walt. I want to make sure we save time at the end for questions that folks may have.
Sounds good. Let's see. This next question, challenges and barriers, was addressed previously been addressed by our panel. Excellent job addressing these challenges and barriers by our panelists. So we'll move on to the next question. Question 8, Dr. Womack.
All right, so our last question is for anyone who may be thinking about developing a similar program within their community or within their university. So do either of you have any best practices based on your experiences working with inclusive post-secondary educational institutions to help pave the path for others who might be thinking about developing an inclusive higher education program, either in their community or at their university?
Yeah, I'll start. This is Johnny. It's critical that whoever is sort of initially interested in that and leading the charge at a college or university involves sort of all the right principles as early as possible, right? We always say it takes a team, right? That's only partially true. It doesn't just take a team, it takes the right team. And so when we're having conversations about this, we make sure that folks who are interested in this are thinking about, let's make sure our financial aid office is involved. Let's make sure someone from our provost office is involved. The registrar's office, admissions, disability resource center, or whatever support services may be called at that university or college. And then certainly student voice and parent voice and maybe other external partners as well, but really not getting so far. One of the things I think that is a tendency is for people who get really passionate about this is to get so far down the road on it that, a handful of people are ready to go and nobody else on campus knows about it. That's not going anywhere. And if it does go anywhere, you're not going to sustain it, right? So having these people on board at the very beginning, because there's going to be a lot of education that has to happen, as I think Aaron alluded to earlier. For example, financial aid people on a college campus are not going to be used to financial aid being able to be applied to students in these programs. This program hasn't existed before on your campus. Nobody's ever had to do it before. Many of them will make an assumption if they don't know about these programs that students don't qualify because they just don't have the experience. So just education around that, making sure folks know from the beginning that while some students may take some classes or maybe all of them for credit, this is likely going to be a non-degree program, a non-degree seeking student, and that's really important. So a lot of these things can be mitigated to some extent by making sure the right principles are involved from the beginning. And I think that's probably what I've talked to folks interested in this about more often than anything else. Aaron, anything to add?
I would just add to that a quote I love from a friend of mine who always has said this. It was something shared with them from a family member a long time ago that they've repeated over and over, was on any venture that it's a good idea to start small and show growth. And I think about that a lot as we move through different phases of how this program has been developed and continues. It can feel really big sometimes, but it is still a start small and show growth. I think what Johnny said is really important. Starting out with connections with people who can help that program to succeed. Having the right people on board is a necessary element. And then once you're on that path of going toward starting the program, I think that it can get exciting sometimes. We might think of all the changes that we want to see. Oh, I wish we could do this. Okay, now let's do this and let's do that. And we get so excited about it, and we see the parts that are going really well. We see this excitement from some students, or maybe sometimes we see some of the questions and frustrations from students and families. So we want to run in and let's make big changes right now so we can address those or show everyone those. And I am trying to constantly remind myself to stay in that mindset of starting small and showing growth bit by bit over time. Hopefully the connections that we make if we go at a slow and steady pace will make our program grow in the way that it needs to, which we're going to learn every day. So yeah, that's my big thing. And I also just think it's really important to recognize, as a few of us have said earlier, each institution, each program, each group of people you might talk to is going to do things a bit of a different way. And that's okay. It may be that one institution, the way that their program is going, would be a great match for one person, not a great match for another. This is true of any institution and any college student. So that's the same with these programs.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Johnny, for that helpful information. This is a question from the panelist to our attendees. To attendees who work with students in middle and high school, what are some ways you might share this information with students and families in your school or district? Feel free to put a reply in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and reply that way as well.
Walt, this is Johnny. Just to be clear, we're asking participants to respond to this question, right?
Correct.
Great.
These were
Yeah.
questions that the panelists from Hour One had discussed, thinking it might be good to engage attendees. And so if there is anyone attending the meeting who wants to chime in about this, we would love to hear what you have to say.
Hi, this is Erin Mitchell. I am one of the LEND students at the University of Kentucky. When I was working with the Down Syndrome Association of Central Kentucky last semester as part of my practicum, one thing we did was we created a PowerPoint or a worksheet for Down Syndrome Day. Where the teachers and the classes can go through and like learn what Down syndrome is and that kind of stuff. And so I think something of that similar nature might be helpful. Just because one session, or when I was in high school, one session about like a particular topic didn't really stick, especially with school, because it was really overwhelming. And so as someone who is on like the other side of that now, I think that that's one of the easiest ways, is just to send out information or teach it to the kids so that they can then go back and want to be a part of something like that, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Aaron.
That's helpful.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. We have a couple questions, maybe some comments in the chat. Sarah says, my district has a transition guide and this information is included. Johnny has replied, that's great. If you don't mind sharing which district, would love to see this if you're able to share. And Amanda's comment is, I previously worked in a high school. Each CTE has a career unit. It would be an ideal place to share this information during the career unit in the class.
These are great.
Yeah, CTE, Career and Technology Education course.
These are great. And as we heard from some of the panelists in the first hour, it varies greatly from school to school, from region to region, from family to family, from situation to situation, whether people come in contact with the information. So it's always great to hear when there are certain schools or districts or areas or families where people are trying to make sure that information gets to students who might be interested. So thank you for that. That's great information.
Yeah, agreed. Awesome. We have another question from the panelists to the attendees. This question is, do any attendees who have been in a learning environment with students with intellectual disabilities, what perspective have you gained from that experience? What have you learned from being in an inclusive education setting?
And this could be if you're an instructor, this could be if you're a student. I know, for example, that sometimes hear feedback from students or instructors at UK who sometimes were a little bit hesitant at first when I reached out to them. Most of the time, if an instructor has been hesitant, it has been because they were worried they might not know the best practices to use. They might think, oh, do I need to do something very different for this class if this person's going to be in my class? And then by the end of the semester, the feedback might be it actually worked out really well. And I think the student had a good experience. And I think that other students in the class also had a better experience for that student being in there. So I do hear stuff like that.
We also have a comment from Zach in the chat. Post-secondary counseling is part of pre-ET's curriculum.
Yes, this is Johnny. I appreciate that, Zach. It's pre-employment transition services. And yeah, I mean, post-secondary counseling is certainly one of those 5 required areas under pre-employment transition services in the law. I think, again, as Aaron said earlier, I think we have examples of folks really leveraging that component and intentionally tying this to that. And then we have examples of people leveraging that component but maybe never thinking about this option for students with intellectual disabilities. So I appreciate you, Zach, and your leadership and thoughtfulness around this, and help us all to learn about that a bit more. One thing I'll share, and this is from my experience as a teacher, as a high school teacher, not as a college professor, because I'm not faculty, but as a high school teacher and having done hundreds of IEPs with teams and talked about planning and post-secondary planning as we invite others to share, I would just say this: our expectations are often far too low for a lot of students, and certainly this population of students. I think that's the perspective that I gained, and one of the things that I learned in working with students with intellectual disabilities at the high school level. Our expectations are far too low.
Thank you, Johnny. We have another question from the panelists to the attendees. To attendees who work in a system of higher education, how can we best support and communicate with college faculty and staff who may have questions or concerns about meeting the needs of students in their classes?
And that was a question I really wanted to bring into the conversation. If anyone has any thoughts about it, either now or even after this meeting, always trying to get information, perspectives from different people, because every conversation I have with someone on the UK campus is different from every other conversation. There are certainly things in common that I've learned, that similarities of what people seem to find helpful or things that people seem to find confusing. And I try to adjust how I communicate or share information based on that as much as possible. But if anyone has any thoughts about that, either now or later, please do share them.
We have comments in the chat. On the previous question, being a substitute teacher in the past, you learn that you have to adjust to things, different things, in order for the students to take in what you're trying to teach them. Everyone learns differently. Comment from Jacob.
So true. Thank you.
We have another comment from John. As a faculty member who taught some CCS students online, don't be afraid to communicate with faculty, either via email or set up a Zoom call.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I will say that I appreciated your feedback when there were students in a class that you were teaching. The experience is different, like I said, each time we reach out to someone, and I think it often will depend on just a lot of factors. And I think probably most of the time when there is any communication glitch or anything like that, it's usually just due to people being overwhelmed, all of us being overwhelmed and trying to field lots of messages. And if there's a question, we sometimes put things aside. I know, I mean, just humans. If there's less certainty about something, we might be less likely to jump right to the next step. And if your plate's really full, it can be easy for communication to kind of go by the wayside or get prioritized a certain way. So I appreciate that. And I appreciated the communication when that was the case with the class that you were teaching, where there were students in that, and that communication really helped us to all have a good experience. I think all of the students who took that class had a wonderful experience with it, and the communication that we had to ask questions and getting quick answers was really helpful for everyone.
We have a minute or two. We have time for a question or two from our participants, our attendees. If you have a
A
comment.
quick question. Oh, sorry to cut
Okay.
you off, Dr.
No.
Bauer.
Oh, go right ahead, Aaron.
My question is, we were just talking about, communication between the faculty and the student. How do you propose either like the faculty or the student handle being overwhelmed or having like a panic attack or social anxiety that might not stop them, but might inhibit, I think that's the word, or limit, there's a better word, communication between the two parties?
That's an excellent question. And it is something that comes up a lot. I don't always know the reason behind why there might be that communication glitch. It might be that it's an anxiety, or it might be that it's an overwhelm. I do think an important thing is, and especially in a program like this, that's what those of us that work in this program, that's part of what we're here for. We're an extra layer of support. We're not creating classes. People are not enrolling in UK classes that are not already existing classes, but part of what we do, the majority of what we do, is act as an extra layer of support to create access for students who wouldn't normally have access to those classes and those classes as they are. And so that's the same with students and instructors. Those issues happen between students and instructors anyway, all the time. So if someone's in this program, I would say utilize the program supports to help with that communication if you're having an issue. And that's whether you're an instructor or whether you're a student. If there's an issue that comes up, like I'm concerned about how I'm doing in this class, or I don't know if I understand what's being asked, we want students to come to us so that we can help them communicate that appropriately and effectively, and vice versa. If a student is not doing well in a class or is struggling with something and we don't know about it, and the instructor, So that part of what we're trying to do is create a channel of communication to say, let's check in every so often and see how things are going. So we try to add a layer of support. If that's not there, so for any other students, I would say checking in regularly, even when something is not going wrong, is a really good practice. Some instructors have that built into their classes, but it is intimidating to reach out sometimes. So I think it's a great idea to have built-in check-ins. I would like to check in with you. We try to not be overwhelming by asking a whole bunch of questions. So we try to ask at the beginning of the semester. We would like to check in with you at the beginning with instructors, midterm, and then close to the end of semester, and then as needed in between. So setting a few times where you know you're going to plan to communicate with whoever you need to communicate with kind of builds in that expectation that you're going to have those check-ins every once in a while, and figure out what else needs to happen from there.
Thank you, Aaron and Johnny. Thank you for that great question as well. We have run out of time today, so I would like to thank Johnny and thank Aaron for your time, sharing your expertise. Thank our speakers, and make sure to thank all of our panelists today. The panel discussion and conversation added richness to the conversation. Be well, everyone. Stay safe.